Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, everybody. It's me, your host, Preacher Mars, on the SOS and Shout Out Show. Welcome to another episode that we hope will be rewarding, investigative, and informative. I want to thank everybody who's been rolling with me since day one, going all the way back to the first day of Ramadan. I appreciate the people that come on in and off, that share their ideas, their comments, and of course, they give their shout outs. Now, listen, I am going to do something a little bit different today. I always say I'm going to do something different. Actually, I have done things differently pretty much all the time, but I have been looking at this whole scope of COVID. I've looking at this whole scope of social protests, even George Floyd, all these things, man. And you know what this whole thing misses? And I say misses, I mean overlooks. We are in need, brothers and sisters, in crucial need of grumpy old black men. That's what we need. We need grumpy old black men. What's going on, sis? It's my man Uthman, heck of a nasheed singer. Check him out if he has some materials. Shout out your website, I'll put it up. But we need grumpy old black men. And I'm saying like the grumpy old type men that you would see on the Muppet Show in the balcony that didn't worry about political correctness. They just said what they felt, and whatever they felt, they meant it. You know, and I think sometimes we have moved away from that. The idea of the grumpy old black man, I realize it's an institution, not only in black communities, but in world communities. The idea of the grumpy old black man is the one person who is willing to speak truth to power and always reminded the power system, whether it was white supremacy or something else, that you had work to do. And we always had our eye on you. That person, that individual, I know we've all had them. I'll tell you a great story. When I was first starting out in comedy, I had a grumpy old black man. He was a talented pianist, organist. His name was Melvin Ryan. And Melvin Ryan was one of the most musically gifted pianists. I think he played with Wes Montgomery. His wife, Ida Cola, was a saint. But to me, he was one of the grumpiest old men. Let me give you a exchange we will have. Hey, Melvin, how you doing? And Melvin would go, I thought I told you to go someplace and die. That's the kind of love he had for me. And I knew it was nothing personal, brothers and sisters. I knew it was nothing personal. What he was doing was he was getting me in a frame of mind that you're going to respect your elders. That to get in my space, you're going to have to earn that space. And what I see now is a lot of things going on where people are not earning that space. They're not necessarily earning the right to be in that space. They assume that they're entitled. I find this with actually families these days. You know, children sometimes they don't really work to earn the love of their parents. And in marriages, we don't really work to earn the love and respect of our spouses. We think, hey, we got married and it's good to go. It's not good to go. Grumpy old black men told you how you felt. I'll give you a prime example. There was a friend of mine. I won't say his name because he's still living, but I was on the porch with my grandfather. And this individual had somehow aspired to be a criminal, like a career day. Like, hey kids, what do you want to be? I want to be a doctor. What be about you? I want to be a lawyer. What about you? I want to be a stick-up guy. He wanted to be a stick-up guy. That's all he talked about. He got his chance to be a stick-up guy. He was not a good stick-up guy. Essentially, he got caught. He tried to rob the same liquor store 3 times, got caught all 3 times. So I'm sitting on the porch with my grandfather, and he's walking up the street. And I don't want to acknowledge this man because I don't want my grandfather to know that this is the kind of company that I keep. So I'm kind of looking down for my keys, my car keys, even though I have a car. So he's walking up the street, and my grandfather goes, you know him? And of course, I lie right away. I go, I have no idea who he is. And he goes, hey, preacher, what's happening? You going to play basketball? And I'm like, oh. My grandfather goes, I thought you told me you didn't know him. I said, but you know me, Pops. I'm popular. Everybody knows me. And he goes, And the other team goes, hey, boy, come over here. And the guy comes over. Now, I'm nervous. I'm sweating bullets, people. I mean, I am sweating. And I'm hoping that this interchange is not going to be a grumpy old man interchange between my grandfather and this young man who I know and also has a reputation in the neighborhood. He comes over, my grandfather goes, say, aren't you the boy that tried to rob that liquor store? He goes, yeah. He goes, how many times you tried? He said, 3 times, sir. At least he didn't lie. He said, I tried to rob the liquor store 3 times, sir. And my grandfather said, you got caught all 3 times. He said, yes, sir. I got caught all 3 times. My grandfather, without a hitch, looked at him and goes, son, maybe bank robbing is not for you. And I'm looking at this kid like, this is your break to run. I have to live here. You don't have to take this. My grandfather goes, I don't want you to walk away without information. So I want to tell you something. He goes, what do you want to tell me, Mr. Moss? My grandfather goes, looking at your choices at a very young age, he goes, I'm here to tell you, you're going to be dumb a long time. And I was like, that is what we've been missing. The people who speak and have nothing. And I have this philosophy about grumpy old men. I believe that the older they get, they figure that they're closer to God. So they need to just get out whatever it is that's on their heart before they go. They just want you to know. Have you ever been to a grumpy old man funeral? It's something that is cathartic. A grumpy old man funeral where grumpy old men come around to celebrate another grumpy old man is hilarious because most of the time they're just there to make sure he's dead. Now, some of you are going to preach, what does this have to do with COVID and social justice? I'm getting to that point if you allow me. Allow me a little bandwidth, if you will. The concept of the grumpy old man was that he was also the gatekeeper of the community. He was the one who asked the questions when someone would come in and we didn't know who he was. He was the one to go, who's your mama? Who's your daddy? Where you're from? And he would verify with the rest of the community. It was a different time back then. Grumpy old men, and I'm not talking about just angry, they had a disposition. And that disposition didn't apply to everybody. To finish up my Melvin Ryan story, I was doing a show with Melvin Ryan in Milwaukee, Wisconsin on a Super Bowl Sunday. Gil Scott-Heron was headlining, and I was an opening comedian. And I was doing pretty good that day. And Melvin Ryan thought I was going over time. And Melvin, God bless him, took a cymbal and threw it to the middle of my act. It was almost out of that thing like Charlie Parker. But he was right because I was over time. I had exceeded my time and they were about to come on. Now, he didn't talk to me the rest of it. I mean, he was, we had this thing. But I'm going to give you something that you should remember. Melvin Ryan actually did like me. What he didn't like was that I was doing comedy while I was in college. And he worried that the comedy thing would take me away from getting my education. So he openly would dissuade me every time he saw me on stage. Now you could say, preach, is that a grumpy old man thing? No, that's a love thing. He just figured out a different way to do it. And we, in our own way, have to get back to appreciating our elders. Because we never saw our elders actually run into the phone booth, put on a cape, and come out with a big Superman on their chest. They didn't have that. There was no S on their chest. There was an E on their chest. It was for every day and everybody. The respect that we have for the grumpy old man. And some people go, why don't they grumpy old women? It just don't fix. There's grumpy old women that it doesn't work. They're loving and they may get on you. And I'm here to tell you, I had some tough senior citizens in my day, but it was never the grumpiness. And it was a masculinity thing. It was the fact that when they opened their mouth, you appreciated that it was a man talking to you. When I say a man talking to you, I mean a man that was well-traveled. And the times were different, as I said. Melvin Ryan had been a jazz musician for over 40 years when I met him. In my neighborhood, we had people who, they had different things. It was a different time. We had folks who were, you would look at him and you say that person is an alcoholic because you saw him drinking all the time. We had a guy in the neighborhood named Diddy Bop, my grandmother's neighborhood. But Diddy Bop, his name was Mr. Smith, and I had to always call him Mr. Smith, never Mr. Diddy Bop. Mr. Smith. An interesting thing that people didn't realize is that Mr. Smith, while he may have had some problems with alcohol, he was retired. He had worked his entire career, retired, and he decided that I'm going to be a full-time alcoholic. You got to love the game, people. You got to love the game. Now, some of you have not been privy to what looks like grumpy old men. Some of you have been coddled a little bit. Oh, please don't say that. And some of these kids out here need grumpy old men in their lives. Yes, you need a grumpy old man to tell you, you know what? You're losing weight. Tell you what, you're getting sloppy at work. I don't like the way you sing. Practice. You know what? If you're going to study, study. Because those are the voices that have moved history. I watched the whole George Floyd thing. And you know what I waited for? A grumpy old man to get up on the dais, move Reverend Al to the side, no religiosity, and just say what he was feeling. And I thought that the crowd would really, really resonate with that. But instead, we have political correctness. We have to watch what we say on television to make sure that we fit into a certain category, that we get funding. You see, the basic understanding of a grumpy old man is they're going to give you an organic understanding of whatever it is that you're going through. It didn't matter the education level, whether they went to Harvard or whether they dropped out of school in the second grade. The work and the effort and the energy and the experience levitated them to a point where, not that they're grumpy old men, but that they had opinions. And those opinions were unfiltered. My Uncle Earl, God bless him, he was a classic grumpy old man, but we loved him. And some people feared him because he would say what was exactly on his mind. It's nuanced for elderly ladies because they have the kindness. But grumpy old men just tell you what's up. If you're stupid, you're stupid. If you're lazy, you're lazy. If I remember this. I was sitting with my grandfather, and there was a lady that came past the house, and I'm just gonna lay it out there because it's my show. There was a lady that came past the house, and she brought a child, a young boy, and the boy was playing with dolls, not G.I. Joe, nothing like that. I'm female dolls, brushing their hair, da da da. And the lady looked at my grandfather and said, "I don't really know what's wrong with him." And my granddad, with our itch, goes, "That boy's sweet." He said, "Sweeter than maple syrup in Vermont. Sweet." Now, some of you guys go, "Oh, that's not politically correct." But let's call it what it is. The guy did grow up and he was homosexual. So what? It's honest. And we need to get back to a sense of honesty, even when it makes us uncomfortable. So I am going to actually share with you one of my favorite grumpy old men, television wise, and you're gonna get a total good feel about this because it's been missing in your life. Brother Uthman, it's been missing in your life. You need this grumpy old man in your life. So I'm going to bring it up here momentarily. But as I bring it up, I just want people to know, hey, listen, it's okay to laugh too. Because grumpy old men made you laugh. They made you feel good about where you were in your life and not worry about all the other stuff that seems to, for lack of a better word, take up our time. So without further ado, one of my favorite grumpy old men, Fred G. Sanford.
Here you are, gentlemen, a nice cold pitcher of sangria.
Gracias, negro.
What'd you call him?
It's a very common thing. I call him negro. It's a very common thing. It's a friendly way of talking to each other in Spanish, what we call ourselves.
You look like no negro to me.
Mr. Sanford, you are going to enjoy this. It is called sangria.
Sangria.
Sí.
Say, what does sangria mean?
It means blood. It is only a name because of the colors.
Oh, I thought it was something He brought back from the bullfight.
It's a very popular drink. Do you like it?
Yeah, it tastes good.
Uh-huh.
Tastes like Ripple is gone flat. In fact, they should call it Flapple. Hey, what's that stuff down there at the bottom?
Oh, that is fruit.
Look like garbage.
That's it. You can stay here and eat with him if you want to, but I'm leaving. No, I'm please, man. Come back. Don't be like... Oh, excuse me, Mr. Sanford. Lamont, please come back. Pardon me. Lamont.
Hey, Negro, come here. Bring me another picture of that Shangri-La. Hey, look here, waiter. Hold the garbage.
All right, people, I had to bring him out. Everybody's talking about pre-truth. I'm talking about that kind of honesty, no political correctness. Not for me. Not for me and not for my grumpy old man. And I'm here to tell everybody that's watching. One day, if Allah blesses me and I live my life right, I'm going to live to be a grumpy old man. And I'm going to get to sit in my front porch on a rocking chair, a table with sweet tea on it, or sangria. No, I don't drink. But I'm going to sit back and I'm going to reflect on my life, and I'm going to be in a righteous place to tell people this is what in the world is going on. Forget everything else. If you're sweet, you're sweet. If you're this, you're that. I want to be that person. And I'm yes, there we go. Brother Wendell, you've nailed it. You had a patient like a grumpy old man. Yes. And you know what? The grumpiness is so genuine because it's balanced by a couple things. Love, and it's balanced by love, and it's balanced by purpose. You know, I didn't say mean spirit old black man. I said grumpy old man. You know, because they question things. And sometimes we have to get back to the fact that we're so tied into technology and Instagram and Twitter and Tumblr and Facebook Live and these cell phones that we have, and even this platform that I'm using to broadcast the show. We're so tied into these things. But there was a time where we sat at the feet of these grumpy old men, or better yet, let me even give you a better understanding. We sat at the feet of men and watched them grow into grumpy old men. And we didn't call them grumpy old men. We called them wise. We called them people who were wise. We called them people who had a community trust. Think about some of the elders right now. And I'm not just talking about in the Muslim community. I'm talking about all over. It's like, who in your neighborhood has the community trust? Who in your neighborhood has the ability to speak freely about what's going on? And I'm talking about no filter. I'm talking about just off the hip, funny, just direct. Because I feel like we're missing that direction in our speech. We don't feel, Assalamu alaikum, Sister Christy. We don't have that honesty anymore. Like when I watch politics metaphorically is missing a grumpy old black man. And one day I want to see a press conference that means something with Donald Trump, and he says something, and you know what? The guy in the back, he might be the security guard or the janitor or old reporter, and he stands up and goes, "Boy, you out your damn mind." And we all, for a moment there, go, alhamdulillah, because somebody's speaking truth. This whole thing right now is just run amok because we're missing the grumpy old man. The protests, they'll do what they want to. People are talking about they'll change, this could change. And I'm like, I'm skeptical. You know why? Because I haven't seen that one identifier, that one truth sayer that goes, you know what? This is what I feel about X, Y, and Z. You know what? This is what I think about that particular policy. You know what? This is what I think about what you said. And he emboldens the idea that we have to be critical of one another even when it hurts. Because right now, it don't hurt. We say things, and everybody's so sensitive these days that everything hurts. Oh, you looked at me wrong. Oh, you didn't say, oh, listen. All I want to put out here, brothers and sisters, like maybe those guys in the past, the Fred Sanfords, the George Jeffersons, and even currently the Bill Cosbys. Bill's pretty grumpy these days. They had a perspective and they understood place and time. I'm not putting it out there as a joke, but the community trust in a traditional setting, in a traditional scenario, always revolved around elders. So you had a grumpy old man, but usually his wife was the one that tamed the grumpy old man, or she was, for lack of a better word, she was the translator. So he'd say something crazy, and then she'd say, this is what he really meant. And I had that. And I want to give a shout out. God bless you, Melvin Ryan. Because Melvin Ryan, I didn't understand it when you were absolutely horrible to me as a young comedian, but I got it. And your wife is the one that told me, it's okay. He just cares. This is just the way he expresses it. And so as I grow, I'm 53 years old. I'm not sure exactly when you can apply to become a grumpy old man. I'm not sure if it's an online application or you have to go through some vouchers. I'm thinking I'm going to have to get some recommendations from current grumpy old men to join the club. But whenever that time comes, I want you to know this. You don't actually have to be black to be a grumpy old man. No. This is a universal concept. What you got to do, though, is you got to be honest. You got to be brutally honest when they're asking for nuance. Because sometimes we go for nuance and effect and worry about people's feelings. And brothers and sisters, in a very, very real way, we lose lives. We're not saying the right things to people with directness and urgency, and we're trying to figure out the right words. And we miss the opportunity to say what needs to be said. I hope, even on my own broadcast, that you don't catch me dancing around subject matter trying to make sure the way you hear it is pleasant to you, as opposed to the way you're hearing it is the way you need to hear it. In our own spaces, in our own little cubby holes, we all have inside of us that space and that capacity to be a grumpy old man. More in fact, to be a grumpy old black man. Because the grumpy old black man frames a lot about what supremacy, about white supremacy and why it isn't relevant, why it should be around. It only grows because the grumpy old black man has been displaced. We have new heroes and athletes and rappers and actors, but they ain't doing the job. That grumpy old black man sat up in my life on 5525 7th Street Northwest in Washington, D.C. And I grew up under him. His name was Clifford Moss Sr., and I grew up under him. And I loved him. And he was hard. But he was hard in a way that it gave me calibration to deal with everything I've dealt with in my life. He was hard on my father. My father was hard on me. And the thing that I appreciate is that he never apologized for it. And the day he passed, it was fun. Because all the other grumpy old men in the neighborhood came to pay their respects. And brothers, to see that collection, that assortment, that coalition of leaders and neighborhood trusts come to pay their respects, it's like nothing I've ever seen before. In closing, I'm hoping that we can get back to that. In closing, I'm asking everybody, for the sake of the community and society in the world, engage that grumpy old black man. So when you see people going to the beach with no mask on, you need to go, hey, stupid. See, you'll get their attention. And the people who believe that you can solve COVID with disinfectant, you need to say, you're out your damn mind. You need to say it loud. And you need to make sure that you mean it with every bit of intention. Now, I'm going to wrap up. Maybe two things I want to say. Whoever that person is in your life that's been that grumpy old man, a grumpy old black man, love them because they're there for a reason. In Islam, we say we have angels on our left and right shoulders. Well, that grumpy old black man is another angel. Hold on to him. And number two, take notes. Look at how they live and how we're living and appreciate them a little bit more. So listen, I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to give our last shout out to my sister. Yes, Fred Sanford was a grumpy old black man, but he was real. In fact, he was real off the screen. I wish I had more time to talk about the actual actor, Red Fox, because his grumpy old man was real. So the character that you see is not a caricature. I said character that you see is not a caricature. That is an evolution of everything he had went through. Listen, everybody, when you see a grumpy old man, just walk up to him and don't give him a hug. Just let him cuss you out. Let him call you a couple names because you're keeping him in practice. Take care, everybody. Preacher Moss, SOS, Shout Out Show. See you tomorrow.